Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Monday, September 9th. We are recording this around 10:15 in the morning after our second watch of this Jaguars Week 1 loss to the Miami Dolphins. I want to talk about 5 Jaguars who must improve in Week 2. Really, it's going to be 6. One of these is just a position group as a whole. You might be able to guess. Go ahead and drop your guesses in the comment section below. But look, I think this is about the perfect number. I think that there were 6 really poor performances by the Jaguars, and that's not just players, that's including the coaching staff. So we're going to dive into it. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content here, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear, become a channel member here on YouTube. So 5 Jaguars who must improve in Week 2. Now this is a football team that is 0-1. They're going up against another 0-1 football team in the Cleveland Browns. Both of these teams need wins. Both of these teams have playoff expectations. They're going to need wins in Week 2. The Browns and the Jaguars both will. It's going to be in Jacksonville, which I think will be good for the Jaguars to get back home. Although if you listen to what they said in 2023, it was good for them to just get away from Jacksonville and be able to go play some football games in London. So who knows, right? But, this is a confounding football team at times. Certainly, they come out, they look fantastic against the Dolphins for the first half. Even into the second half, they were still looking good. I thought the defense did the job the entire day. Outside of one player in particular, I thought it was fairly consistent. And yeah, did Ronald Darby give up some completions to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? Yeah, but come on. You're going to. I said that before the game. I'll say that before every time the Dolphins play. Those guys are going to get theirs at times. They are going to. But you have to limit their efficiency. You have to limit the big plays, keep them to a minimum. I thought the Jaguars defense did that for the most part. The one culprit here for me upon this rewatch, and I've talked about it a little bit live as well. Antonio Johnson in his first start at safety for the Jaguars, I thought he had some struggles. Were there some good plays made by Antonio Johnson? Yes. But in pursuit of ball carriers, I thought he was overly aggressive. I thought he took some bad angles. He missed some tackles. He's just got to be more sound with those angles and with his tackle fundamentals. He's got to. Because there were several plays he should have made that would have helped the Jaguars defense. And then also on the big Jalen Waddle completion, where he was just going from left to right, kind of a deep over type of play, Antonio Johnson bit hard underneath, and it kind of left Andre Sisco on an island back there. Ronald Darby was trying to give chase as well. But I thought Antonio Johnson needed to play better. That was a tough first game as a starter, right? Second year in the league, first year in a defense, first year. Last year he was really kind of playing more big nickel. This year he's a starting safety, has to go out there and try to contend with the Miami Dolphins, their speed, Mike McDaniel's offense. That's tough, but he's got to do better. Bottom line, got to do better. Christian Kirk's got to do better. 2 drops. Those plays certainly could have helped the Jaguars in this football game, especially the second one. And Christian Kirk owned up to it in the locker room. He said he's got to play better, and he has full confidence that he will play better. He's had performances like this before, situations like this before, and he's bounced back. I still think Christian Kirk is one of the best players on this football team, one of the best slot receivers in the game. I think the Jaguars would be smart to feed him the football more. I think they'd be smart to pass the ball more, especially down the stretch. We'll get to that as well. But Christian Kirk just can't have those types of drops, and he knows that. He talked about it after the game. I think he's a great football player. I think he'll bounce back. Travis Etienne. So, obviously, you start with the fumble. Can't happen. Got to keep it high and tight. Had some fumble issues in 2022. Really didn't in 2023. I think a renewed focus. And the Jaguars do so much work on ball security in practice, so I'm not blaming the coaches at all for that. It was a good play by Javon Holland, but it was a bad play by Travis Etienne in terms of his ball security. It was. He's got to hold on to that football. Cannot let that happen. Such a pivotal moment in the game. Obviously, it swung the momentum into the Dolphins' favor. And the next 2 things we're going to talk about, I think, is what really allowed the Dolphins to win that game. So adversity struck. Instead of scoring a touchdown, going up 24-7, You fumble it into the end zone, it's a touchback, and then on the very next play, Tyreek Hill goes 80 yards to the house, right? That was, after that happened, that was kind of predictable that the Miami Dolphins were going to be able to get some momentum, pick up some big plays, score a touchdown. You're hoping it didn't happen all on one play, but it did. 80 yards to the house for Tyreek Hill. But so Travis Etienne's fumble, again, unacceptable, but that was adversity, right? And that was the difference in the ballgame. But also the difference in the ballgame and the difference for this team in a lot of situations over the last couple of years, especially last year and early on in Doug Peterson's tenure, was how you handle adversity. Like, adversity should not define you. How you handle adversity, excuse me. Adversity should not define you. How you handle adversity should be what defines a football team. And how they handled the adversity of a Travis Etienne fumble was atrocious. I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. You're not going to keep Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins offense down consistently throughout a ballgame. I think the defense did a good job. Again, outside of Antonio Johnson being a little overly aggressive in pursuit at times, not using his tackling fundamentals, and then, the one big play in coverage that I thought he was a big part of. But how you respond to adversity is what defines you, in my opinion. And I think the Jaguars' offensive tackles down the stretch were awful. Both of them. And these are two guys I respect. I respect what they do in pass protection. I respect how they play the game. I think they're both good football players. Big physical athletes. They got steamrolled down the stretch. After that fumble, I mean, they played horrible. Cam Robinson, horrible in the run game and in pass protection. Anton Harrison could barely get a hand on Jalen Phillips. And Jalen Phillips is a great player. But Anton Harrison has gone against really, really good edge players at this point in his young career already. He has. And so that performance was unacceptable in the fourth quarter by Anton Harrison and Cam Robinson. They've got to be better. I mean, got to be. Now, do I think that play calling helped them and helped the Jaguars offense down the stretch? I don't. And so I do blame the tackles for not being able to execute in pass pro, not being able to execute in the run game, especially Cam Robinson. Like that 4th and 1, he whiffed on Emmanuel Ogbah, who disrupted that play in the backfield. He did. So that was ugly. Doug Peterson, though, right? It was a confusing end to the game. And you can say, oh, who was calling plays, Press or Doug? I don't care. Because it falls on Doug. Because Doug will not say who is calling plays. And even if he did, regardless, it still falls on Doug. This is an offensive-minded head coach who has hitched his wagon to Press Taylor for better or for worse. So I don't care which one of them's calling plays at this point. It's on Doug. And I'm a fan of Doug. I've talked about it. I think Doug is a very good coach. Very good coach. But when I look at the end of this game, going into a shell, only running the ball, 8 of those next 9 plays after the Travis Etienne fumble, you got predictable, and then you only threw the ball in obvious situations where you had to. And the Jaguars in this game, after week 1, they're at the bottom of the league in neutral down pass rate, which means when it was neutral, they were running the ball way more than they were passing it. And when you have Trevor Lawrence, when you have a situation where the Dolphins are getting hot and you're just going to try to go into a shell, no. To me, that's not Doug Peterson. To me, that's not what the Jaguars should be about. And I think it's got to improve. You can't do that again. Not against a team like Miami. Not against any team. Because you were predictable. You were running the football. You're going to run the ball. You're going to try to salt this game away when you're only up 3 points against statistically the best offense in the league. Certainly the most explosive. So Doug Peterson, in my opinion, has got to be better down the stretch. And I think part of the reason that Cam and Anton had struggles in the fourth quarter is because the Miami Dolphins knew what the Jaguars were doing from a run versus pass standpoint. They passed when it was obvious they had to pass. They ran every other time outside of like one play on those final few drives. So I think that's got to be better. Absolutely do. But overall, I still think the Jaguars, like I've said, I still think they're a playoff team. I still think that they're going to have a quality season. But Antonio Johnson's got to play better football in pursuit. Can't have a coverage bust. Overall, I thought coverage was fine, but pursuit got to be way better. Got to tackle better. Christian Kirk can't have those drops. Travis Etienne cannot have that fumble. Cam Robinson and Anton Harrison cannot finish the game that poorly, and Doug Peterson cannot go into a shell as an offensive play caller or offensive head coach, whatever the hell you want to say. That's how I view this one. Those are the players who must improve the most for the Jaguars to win. We are going to do some offensive and defensive standouts still. I think there's a lot of players that deserve credit for their performances in this football game. So we'll get to that. But I really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear, become a channel member here on YouTube. Y'all have a good one.